across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there. I've been busy decorating 2 Christmas trees for you. Kevin had one. I've just dragged the other one into the studio. So there you go. I'm a thorn between 2 roses there. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and a full show again, full packed show for you. Don't forget though, at midnight it is Talk Back. It is your chance to do exactly that and to talk back. And considering the first story we're going to be looking at is the merging of police stations into 12 regional forces. So it's gone from 243 down to 117, down to 43, and now they're looking at the low teens, so between 12 and 15 police forces across. Actually, they're police services, aren't they? Because it's not a force anymore. And I want to ask you what policing is like where you are. Because I know what policing is like in a city. This is where I live. But what is policing like all around the country? What is it like in those villages and towns? I can imagine it's pretty scant as it is. But can you imagine having one police force covering the whole of Norfolk and Suffolk, for example? Is that going to make you feel safer? Or is this just about saving money? That actually this is not going to make the police service more reliable, or even more popular with us as the people who pay for them. So do you believe that this is the right way to go? Does it concern you? Do you live out in rural England or Wales? Because this won't affect Scotland. But I'd love to hear from you on this. So give me a call. And if you are a police officer, we don't need to use your real name, for example. But I'd really want to hear from you if you're concerned about this as well, because I thought community policing was where it was all at, right? Knowing the local criminals, knowing the local lads, all of those things. So and having that local touch and being able to know that Mrs. Miggins hasn't been seen in her house or out of her house for a week. Those things that you imagine that the police would be responsible for. So I'd love to hear from you on that. So just let me know what it's like in your area. Do you see them often? Are they around? Do you feel safe if something happens? Do you believe that you're going to be well looked after and well cared for? Give me a call. The number you're going to need is 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate, but we do call you back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Other things coming up on the programme. Before that, at 11 o'clock, we have the wonderful Phil Dave, a talk broadcast and editor, in the studio to go through the newspapers for Thursday, the front pages. Lucy Beresford will be joining us because I'm fascinated about this idea of human monogamy after the story that was in the papers about that we are largely monogamous, but we're not as monogamous as the Californian mouse, which is 100% monogamous. And yet we are more monogamous than a meerkat. So this is the monogamy trial. But on a serious note, I want to know if it is a natural state for human beings to be monogamous, to be with one partner. So I'm going to be looking at that. Tom Clark joins me as well to discuss new data. This is absolutely mind-blowing. A report has shown that 56,000 people across the world control 3 times the wealth of the poorest half of humanity, of billions of people. That's 0.001% of the entire world population holds 3 times the wealth of the poorest half. Absolutely mind-blowing numbers. So I'm going to be talking about that. And should there be some form of wealth distribution, or will there be revolution? So that's what's coming up. And going back to our top story about the policing, the Home Secretary is considering radical reform. She really wants to shake this up that would drastically reduce the number of police forces across the country. Shabana Mahmood is thinking of creating a dozen regional mega forces to try and cut costs and increase efficiency. There are currently 43 territorial forces in England and Wales, and according to the Times, they could be reduced to just 12. Before the 60s, like I said, there were 243. They were reduced to 117 before, again, being reduced to 43. So are we seeing policing improve by these reductions, or do we fear that actually things will just simply get worse? Well, joining me to discuss this is Danny Shaw, crime, justice and policing commentator and former advisor to Yvette Cooper, who was Home Secretary and now isn't. And Danny wrote an excellent piece actually in The Spectator today as well that I read. Danny, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Good evening, Petrie.
There will be a lot of scepticism about the idea of reducing forces from the current 43 to the low teens, 12, possibly 15. Are we right to be sceptical?
I think absolutely right to give the ideas some scrutiny and to really think carefully about whether it's the right approach to take. I think what everyone is decided upon who understands policing, people who work in law enforcement, is that if you had a blank sheet of paper, you wouldn't design the police service as it is at the moment, with 43 forces in England and Wales, some, with barely more than 1,000 officers, others like the Metropolitan Police with 31,000 officers, and also on top of that you have some regional units, some regional policing units, then you have the National Crime Agency, then you have other bodies like the Serious Fraud Office, the Ministry of Defence Police, and so it goes on, and it's all sort of knitted together at the centre through this very odd sort of group of organisations called the College of Policing, the National Police Chiefs Council, and it's a bit of a mess. It's incoherent. I think it's very wasteful. I think there's a lot of resources that are wasted through duplication and particularly through the procurement of computer technology, which is done, separately in many cases. And so I think everyone would say you would not design it like it is, but that's quite different from saying, taking it as it is, how do you get to something that's more efficient and effective? And that's the difficult bit.
See, logic would determine, for my brain anyway, that if 43 bad, 12 good, why isn't one good? I mean, that's the logic, right? If 12 is better than 43, then 1 is better than 12.
Yeah. Look, I think the first thing you've got to understand about policing is that there has to be local policing. There have to be neighbourhood officers, police officers and police community support officers that work regularly in neighbourhoods in every area of the country and understand those communities, that get to know some of the key people, that work with other agencies. And that has to stay in whatever model of policing you've got. If you've got 43 forces or 12 or 1, you have to have that local touch. And then you obviously have to have layers on top of that to supervise that. And then you have to have, response teams that are responding to emergencies all the time that have to be rooted locally. I think the question is, what functions can better be achieved at a national or a regional level, and what back office support services, as every organisation has. It has a human resources department, a payroll department, a legal department, a vetting department, hugely important in policing. All those sorts of back office functions, do they have to be done locally, or could they be done nationally or regionally at a lower cost and more effectively and more consistently? So you have to decide what bits need to be done locally and what bits need to be done regionally and nationally. And I think that's why your question is a very good one. You might decide you just need one police force for England and Wales, or one for England and one for Wales. But what bits still have to be done locally and regionally, for example? Because what you don't want is detectives based in London having to drive up the motorway to Manchester
Sure.
to investigate a homicide. That's completely nonsense, isn't it?
Sure, it is. But again, if we've got 43 at the moment and they want to bring it down to 12, the things that they're talking about that could be done centrally with 43 as well as it could be done for 12, right? I mean, if you're going to have a central procurement office, which I don't understand why there isn't one anyway, as there should be for the NHS, all the different trusts, you know, some people spending 5 pence on a syringe and others spending 23 pence on a syringe. It is absolutely bonkers to me. So that is something. The vetting could always be taken away from 43 of those forces, services, whatever, and done centrally as well. So the idea of merging and amalgamating, it doesn't fit logically with the idea that some services should be centralised, which we all agree with. Does it?
But you can do, you could do both. I mean, you might decide. I mean, and look, the plans that Yvette Cooper, my former boss, had in mind, which will form the basis of a government white paper, so a document with proposals that they'll take forward, which we're expecting the new year. That document envisaged a central policing body which would look after procurement of IT in particular. It would look after forensic services, and it would supervise air support, so helicopters, drones, and so on. And that would all be done centrally, and there'd be other functions done centrally. So you can do all that, you can have that, and that requires quite an upheaval in itself. And there are some forces that don't want to lose the particular. If you're a police force that has your own forensics department and likes to do your own testing, and then you're told, no, it's not happening anymore, we're all doing it centrally, you as a police force might object to that. So there are lots of issues to iron out there, but that doesn't mean that you then have to keep 43 and then have this one central body, because regionally there are some types of policing that best be done regionally. For example, serious crime investigations, murders, major human trafficking inquiries, etc. There are some forces that are so small that they're not going to get many of those cases a year.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to have a specialism just for that force. So it would be better to have that regionally. And crime crosses borders. So, the gang that is going around stealing cars in Warwickshire, for example, might also be doing it in the West Mercia region and the West Midlands and Worcestershire, crossing boundaries. Why should one police force have to then hand over everything to another police force to investigate? Makes more sense to have regional units doing that sort of work. So that's why I think what you want is a lot of services procured and dealt with centrally. You want the very local level, but then I think there needs to be regional forces that kind of sit on top of that. And I also think you could make some substantial savings by doing that. In Scotland, about 12 years ago, they went from, I think it was 8 forces to 1 in Scotland. So now you have Police Scotland. You used to have different police forces in Scotland. They have saved hundreds of millions of pounds a year by doing that. Now there's a debate. Is it better? Was it better before? But actually, in terms of the savings they've made, huge.
You look at policing, and I used to work a lot with the military, right? And of course, every other year there was a merger of regiments. And it was incredibly complicated. It was very expensive. New uniforms, new insignia, new structure. So this is going to cost. If we go ahead with this, this will cost a fortune, and there will always be those. Between Norfolk and Suffolk, who takes the lead, who's the boss, who isn't the boss, who's going to be. There's going to be a lot of. Trust me, I've seen it with regimental mergers. It is a very complex thing to do. It's not as simple as just going, right, you've got a bigger area now.
Yeah, and that's the real difficulty. And it's interesting you mentioned Norfolk and Suffolk. So Norfolk and Suffolk are separate constabularies, but in 2028. There's going to be a new mayor for both of the counties of Norfolk and Suffolk. And that mayor will have various powers. and may and could, if the government so chooses, take policing powers. In fact, they probably will. But does it make sense to have two separate forces if you've got one mayor for both counties? They're both relatively small police forces, and there's lots of commonalities between them. So that's one example. But you are right to say that whenever you amalgamate police forces, whenever you have a big structural reorganisation like that, there are set-up costs. You have to invest initially to get over the bump before you start to see some of the savings further down the line. And the problem is, will the government and the Home Office in particular have the investment, have the funding to do that, to help the police forces get over that bump? And the other question, which is a rather more complex one, is about council tax. So police forces in England and Wales get funding from two sources. One from the Home Office, a grant from the Home Office. The other one they raise via the council tax. And in some areas, the council tax rates are completely different from other areas. So if you suddenly brought together, let's say, Norfolk and Suffolk, it wouldn't be fair for the residents of Norfolk to pay a different council tax for the same police force as to the residents of Suffolk. So you have to sort out those discrepancies, and that normally means giving some extra money to smooth things over. So again, there are some big issues to overcome.
The public, though, for whom that's the only reason the police are in existence, will be concerned that this is a further withdrawal of the police from the public. That you know, where is the police station going to be? Are they going to open more rural police stations to take account for that? Will there be one at each end of each area? You know, and in some cases that's still going to be miles and miles and miles away. The withdrawing of the police from the public is a major problem. It leads to us not having faith in them. We don't trust them, etc., etc. Are we going to see, in all good grace, it might save us money, but something's got to give. Is it a further withdrawal of the police from the public?
Look, I don't think it should be, and if anything, you know, if this went ahead, if a reorganisation went ahead, it should actually release money that you could invest in the front line and in neighbourhood policing. But you are right to say that one of the fears, particularly of people who live in villages and towns in areas which are served by a smaller police force, they will be worried that if their police force is suddenly being joined up to much bigger force or forces, that their interests are going to be neglected and the bigger force is going to have more sway. And that was certainly one of the concerns 20 years ago when police force mergers were on the Home Office agenda, and the then Home Secretary Charles Clarke was trying to push them through. There were people saying, you know, for example, in West Mercia Police, in the police force area, there was talk of a merger with West Midlands. They were saying, well, you know, who's going to be making the decisions about, you know, how many neighbourhood cops when to attend burglaries? They're not going to care about our village in the countryside. In the West Mercia Police Force area, it'll be in Birmingham where they'll put all the the focus in the West Midlands. So that is a real challenge as well.
And finally, we say this is about saving money and rationalising it all across certain departments, but we all know that money that is saved won't go back into policing. That'll go somewhere else. So I believe that we'll be poorer for it.
That's a very cynical view.
I am a very cynical person, Danny, very cynical. I've been around a long time. But they're also talking about, forming the British version of the FBI, if you like, and doing all that. They're going to cost money as well. So that is my fear, is that the money will be taken out of the frontline policing for people all around the country, possibly not even being spent on policing, but if it is, it'll go into these, new posh things that they're trying to create, and therefore the public still lose out to a degree.
Well, I mean, that's a concern, obviously, but that needs really good management by ministers and by the Home Office to ensure that money is invested.
We're doomed.
Yeah, and by the police forces. So that's subject to negotiation. Of course, it's a concern. The policing landscape is too cluttered at the moment. Yeah. People who are not steeped in it in the way that I am, perhaps don't quite appreciate the number of different organisations. It drives you mad. At the moment, decision making in policing is crazy. What you need at the moment to get a decision made is the signatures of the 43 chief constables, plus the police and crime commissioners or the elected mayors for each of those areas as well. So in effect, you need over 80 signatures to get a decision made in policing. I mean, I am told a very, very good example of this was a few years ago. The police service decided to set up an anti-corruption hotline so people could report police officers suspected of wrongdoing. And it was going to be run by Crime Stoppers. But what it needed was every police force to throw in a little bit of money to keep this service going. I mean, it wasn't very much. It might have been £1 million, it might have been £500,000 for some, it may be even less than that. But they needed the signatures of over 80 people to agree to something like that. That is crazy. That is not a way of doing business. And that's just one example of the lack of coherence and coordination in the way that the police service is structured, and why Shabana Mahmood is absolutely right to look at radical reform. And I hope she goes for it, but in a way that brings people with her, and it doesn't feel like a top-down, this is what you're going to do approach, which is what Charles Clarke did 2 decades earlier.
And they need to bring the public with them as well. We are the forgotten, third leg of this. They've got to bring us with them as well. And she's got to be honest with us as to what we can. I mean, I know that is an oxymoron, an honest politician, but just tell us we're grown-ups, right? We can handle the truth. Just be honest about it. That's what I'd like to see anyway. Danny, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much. I've no doubt we'll speak again. Thank you. Danny Shaw there, crime, justice and policing commentator and former advisor to Yvette Cooper. Quick break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and of course at midnight it is your opportunity to talk back, and I really want to hear from you because obviously being a Londoner, I only really understand what policing is like in London. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, the Metropolitan Police, not in favour at the moment with most Londoners, but we're looking now at merging, amalgamating, joining forces across the UK, across England and Wales, actually, to be more specific. Scotland already just has the one police force service, whatever it's called. So we're looking at reducing from 43 to 12. My concern with that, I'll be honest with you, I'll be upfront with you, is my concern with that is we're going to see a further withdrawal of policing on our streets, that we're going to see fewer police out and about. And there's already sparingly few police we ever see in London, really, considering there are 31,000 of them. It's virtually, it's where's Wally? I very rarely see coppers out and about. But what's it like where you are? I mean, if you're rural, you must never see them, right? And are you worried that if forces do join together, that actually you will lose out and the criminals will gain? That's really what we're looking at. So I want to know what they are like in your area. Or do you support this idea? And if you are ex-police, if you're retired, if you're still in one of the police forces, what do you make of this? Be honest with us. Like I said, we're grown-ups. I just want a bit of honesty. What's this really going to look like for us, the general public? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Now, we've got another competition for you. Here is a massive one for you, welcoming in the new year by giving away 26 grand. 26 grand, that's a nice start to the new year, isn't it? A serious cash, £26,000. It's our biggest New Year cash giveaway and it could all be yours. It's 26 grand, in case you're wondering, that's an odd number for 2026. Somebody put a lot of thought into that. Here's how you enter. Oh, yes, I can. The terms and conditions, call 0343 423 9761. Lines close at 12 p.m. on the 9th of January. Crikey, they'd want you to read it fast. This is an 18 plus and it's a network promotion. For full T's and C's, you can find them at talksport.com/win.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a good evening to you. Now, that competition, I'm going to run through it again for you because there was a problem with the VT you may or may not have guessed. So we're giving away £26,000, 26 grand for 2026. Here's how you enter. You text TALK to 83338. 83338. Text costs £2.50 plus your standard network rate, or as I was saying earlier, you can call 0343 423 9761. Those lines close at 12 p.m. on the 9th of January 2026, and that's when you'll need to answer your phone. If it rings, you have to be in the UK and 18 years old to take part. And as I said, full T's and C's can be found at talksport.com/win. So good luck. It's a great way to start the new year. Wish I could enter, which I can't. Right, let's move on. Talking of money, it won't quite put you in the top 0.001% to win that 26 grand, but it will help. These numbers that have just come out, it's absolutely extraordinary. This is a World Inequality Report. Shows 56,000 people, they would fit into a medium-sized stadium. Just to give you an idea of what 56,000 people looks like, a medium-sized sports stadium, right? That number of people in the world control 3 times the wealth of the poorest half of humanity. The report also found that the richest 10% own 3/4 of all personal wealth and make more money than the other 90% of the world combined. Researchers argue that global inequality has reached such extremes that urgent action has become essential. And it's not difficult to see that people such as Elon Musk, who is a trillionaire now, or soon to be trillionaire, wields incredible power, and with money comes power. And that's the concern. It's not just the money, but it's the power that gives this very small handful of people. Well, joining me to discuss this is Tom Clark, contributing editor at Prospect magazine, and Tom's a journalist and author who specialises in inequality and social injustice. One of his books is Broke: Fixing Britain's Poverty Crisis. Tom, hello there, nice to see you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. We all know that there is a huge wealth disparity, but when you see these cold numbers, it is really startling, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to compare it to other things because very few other things have this kind of skew between the very, very small group at the top and more or less everyone else. I mean, you were talking there about a football stadium with the richest people in the world all in it. You know, to get into that football stadium, you'd need multiple hundreds of millions of pounds. So, you know, if someone were lucky enough to ring up the competition you were just running, and they were to win that competition every day for 3 years, they would, you know, then have 26 million pounds. They still wouldn't be in that stadium. Yeah. So we're talking about, you know, the richest people in the world who have hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds. And what this report said, that not everything in the world is getting more unequal. You know, poor countries like China are coming down the track for the United States. But there is something going on there. Those very, very top people like the Elon Musk of the world who kind of control the internet, and the internet seems to be a different sort of tool when it comes to making money on a global scale.
I mean, are we with the tech giants, because it is technology at the moment that seems to be leading the way, this sort of idea of a techocracy, if you like, it's always been those things that are put in those future films that are terrifying, that you've got big companies running the world, that it is no longer politics, that they have got so much of the wealth that the politicians are obsolete, because actually, as we see in America right now, if you're in the pocket of some of these billionaires and trillionaires, then there's no point in you being a politician, right? Because they are the ones controlling what you do and say.
It can get like that. It can get like that when there's no rules, when there's no protection whatsoever. But I mean, in America, of course, there's no limit on campaign contributions, and so that means it really is a game of money buys influence. You can see this. Congress people are like desperately scrambling around to get wealthy donors in the hope that they can, buy their way through their primary, buy their way back into Congress at the next election, and the spend makes all the difference. But the nation state isn't powerless. Democracy isn't powerless. We do have rules in the UK. If you look at what's spent per voter, it's quite low, and so it's quite hard to buy rules in quite the same way over here as is done in the US. So I'd say don't abandon all hope, but do be absolutely eternally vigilant. When there's big enough money, then the idea of one person each having equal influence becomes that bit harder to sustain.
But you also see countries being run like Russia, for example, where everybody's equal, but some are more equal than others. Actually the inequality there is absolutely vast, and there is nothing to stop that continuing. The rich will get richer, and the poor will get poorer.
Well, yeah, I mean, and what happens in Putin's Russia, and I think you could argue increasingly in Trump's America too, is that the state is turned into the kind of classic instrument of an oligarchy, and that's what you saw in that coming together of Elon Musk and Donald Trump, and the kind of Trump experiment in crypto that's of interest, personal interest to him and his family, getting people to stay in the Trump hotel. All this kind of thing means you can use the levers of state power quite directly, so that power and wealth are no longer separate things, but much of a muchness. And interestingly, in this report, which I should say is, lots of leading scholars on inequality around the world, but commissioned at the behest of the UN, so it's got a sort of official standing. They do get into the politics, and they do get into some of this, saying, yeah, it's getting harder to keep wealth and power separate. But like I say, not everything is going the wrong way. Big parts of the world, notably China, also India, that contain an awful lot of people, at least when it comes to what people earn rather than what they own, they are starting to close that gap, and that does cover an awful lot of humanity.
But the gap is still vast. I mean, you say they're beginning to close it. In India, it's huge.
Sorry, there's a gap inside these countries, and if you think of a country like, let's take the UK, obviously the one I know best, then we're incomparably more unequal as a country than we were, when I was born 50 odd years ago. In all sorts of ways, we're unequal. First of all, because people at the top, the CEOs get paid, might be 100 times more than what an ordinary person would be, rather than 20 times it might have been in the past. We're also more unequal because wealth, what we own, has got bigger relative to what we earn. I mean, the way that you think about that for most people most of the time would be that house prices have gone up relative to earnings, and that means the people who own are well placed and the people who don't own are not well placed. So we have got more unequal as a country, but I'm saying as a world, because this is a global report, despite this extraordinary elite at the top, running away with year in, year out gains, it says here, over the last 30 years of 9% a year. No one else is getting anything like that. But
it makes a mockery of the idea of trickle down, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But all I'm saying about the China and the India thing is, if you take the average person who might be working, in an electronics factory in China, they're doing quite a lot better than like their grandparents would have been doing, working only in a paddy field. And so that's that. And because there's so many people there, that's the corollary in a way of the fact that there's so much riches in this top 0.001%. which gives you maybe a little bit of hope on a report that's pretty dark overall.
There was a book that I read some while ago now that was talking about the division between rich and poor, and when that gets wide enough, that has always been the cause of revolution. That if it gets wide, but it feels like it's pretty wide and nobody's revolting yet. But it has always been a precursor, right? It has always been that, you know, the whole let them eat cake in France, you know, that whole, or why don't they eat cake, which is what she actually said. But, you know, are we getting anywhere near, or is it just too big now, too powerful now, the idea that as the common people, the little people, that we can ever find balance?
I mean, it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think that what matters most politically is because we're still arranged in countries, is the gap within the countries rather than this thing of the gap around the world. You know, the gap within, say, the United States is obviously very, very high and a lot bigger than it was a generation ago. It agitates people, it makes people cross, it makes people resentful, but it can push them in different directions. They're not necessarily going to turn on the elite. They might also turn on, you know, immigrants coming across from the Mexican border, people who might be poorer than them. So it can work in different ways. I mean, the other thing we shouldn't lose sight of is what's happening at the very bottom. Over the last 20 years, you might remember, you know, Tony Blair and all those people doing the Millennium Development Goals, increasing aid spending, trying to do trade a bit more fairly, and absolute poverty of people living on less than $2 a day. That really has gone down during most of the 21st century. But suddenly what we're seeing now, aid budgets coming down. And so that's where you get back into Marie Antoinette type questions of, you know, is there going to be no food for people in large parts of the world? Aid budgets, you know, like on course in Britain, sort of halve as a share of national income. And also, you know, countries are going to find it harder to trade their way into prosperity when Donald Trump's putting up tariffs everywhere. So I think you could have kind of some ingredients for an explosion in parts of the world which have been kept tranquil by aid.
Will there ever be a more equal society? And I'm asking to look in a crystal ball, but is there anything that can affect this enormous growth of this tiny percentage of people in their wealth? The lack of trickle down. There is no trickle down. We're definitely not seeing any evidence of that. Is there any, or is this just the world now and it's just going to get bigger and bigger at the top?
No, I mean, but I think there is a force that favours this elite, which is the internet, and the fact that, you know, if you're good at something, or maybe you're not even good at it, you've just worked out a way of selling it. If you're Amazon rather than someone who owns a corner shop, you know, and the whole world's buying stuff through you, then you have this chance to kind of accumulate in a way that is unprecedented because it's so global. So that's the force that you're up against. And then, you know, wealth and power begets wealth and power, as we've been saying. But, you know, we have sort of been here before. In the United States, back in the turn of the 20th century, you know, there were these robber barons that were known as people like Andrew Carnegie, people who built these great monopolies. They bought up all the bits of the railroads or all of the steel companies so they could set the prices, they could control everything. And in the end, the nation state did fight back, and they introduced competition laws, and they busted the trust, as it was called. And, you know, it could happen again with big tech. And the difficulty you've got is that most of the big tech is in the US, which is always going to be a bit hesitant about taking down its own national champions, but it's going to be particularly hesitant about doing so when Donald Trump's in the White House and in on this whole oligarchy kind of thing. But in principle, it's absolutely possible to bring these people down a peg or two. You know, we've got lots of utilities that would be making huge amounts of money for people if it weren't for the fact that we're regulating. We're going to have to find a way, I think, in the end, to regulate and tax them.
Indeed. It's absolutely fascinating. And of course, don't forget people power. if there are companies that we don't like, we just stop shopping there, and that hurts them the most. Tom, it's really good to talk to you. Really interesting stuff. Thank you. Tom Clark there, contributing editor at Prospect magazine. Quick break, back to talk about monogamy.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good evening to you. Just a reminder that coming up at the top of the hour, Phil Dave will be in the studio to go through tomorrow's newspapers. Now though, I want to discuss monogamy with you, and some of the men that I've been out with in the past thought that was a type of wood. But it isn't. The University of Cambridge has published a study where it ranks animals by their reproductive habits, and according to researchers, humans rank somewhere near meerkats when it comes to coupling up. The study examined the monogamous lifestyle of different species, and apparently when it comes to a league table of monogamy, we more closely resemble these social close-knit mongoose than we do our primate cousins. But is monogamy really in human nature? Are we monogamous? Do we want to stay together? Do we want to just be together? Or is it an unnatural state? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Lucy Beresford, who's a psychotherapist and broadcaster. It has been a minute, hasn't it? I haven't seen you for ages.
It has been a while, and I'm delighted to be with you again.
So am I. I'm delighted you're here. Okay, so this is just a bit of fun, I think. This study that Cambridge did, comparing us more like meerkats in terms of monogamy, but we're not as good as the Californian mouse, which is 100% monogamous. They stick together. Is monogamy a natural state for human beings?
Well, that is a very interesting way of phrasing the question, because you could argue that marriage in particular is simply a sort of society sanctioned construct which came into being in order to blend families together and to, in a way, perpetuate the genes in a more regulated form. And in fact, you could argue that romance and marrying for love only really came into prominence, let's say about 1,000 years ago. So they were writing about it 1,400 years ago, and maybe a bit earlier. But before that, it was all very transactional. It was about land, it was about wealth, it was about families. And therefore, the idea that you would just stay together, and let's be clear, most people didn't really live that long. They lived maybe to their mid-40s. But if you're Generation Z now, you could realistically expect to live to, let's say, 110. 120 with medical advancements being the way it is, which is why other studies have shown that Generation Z, for example, are leading the way in non-monogamy. So there was a study out by Ashley Madison. They are the married dating website.
Oh, yes, the famous one. Yeah.
Why do people have affairs, and why, for example, are so many Gen Z men, so these are men under the age of 29 who are single, why are they signing up in their droves to a site like Ashley Madison, which is nominally for married people to get together? And the answer was because there is a certain freedom and a lack of restriction around having relationships where the very model is about non-monogamy. Gen Z are very loath to have labels in relationships, whereas maybe 500 years ago, and particularly for women, it was absolutely crucial that you got married. That Jane Austen's opening paragraph to Pride and Prejudice sets out the stall that really, if you weren't married by the time you were in your early 20s, you were pretty much on the shelf, and society rejected you. And life has moved on now, thank goodness.
Thank goodness. But it is fascinating to me that, and what you've just said there actually just makes it very clear, is that marriage, this construct, whether it was a governmental or religious construct in order to, in a sense, control what was going on. You're right, they were shorter. They were meant to be shorter. People did not live that long. The idea now that if you get married at the age of, I don't know, let's say 30, that you've got 70 or 80 or even 90 years with the same person is crazy, right?
Well, it is quite mind-boggling, but then of course that's where someone like I come in with, with my relationship advice, how to keep the spark alive, how to perhaps...
For 90 years?
For 90, exactly. Well, I am assuming that people will still be having sex in their 80s and 90s, and maybe beyond, because it's a very pleasurable thing to do. I think that the thing I find quite weird about the study you're referencing from the University of Cambridge is that their predictor, that the way that they have kind of analysed about monogamy is to ascertain whether people had children together and whether those children had any half siblings.
Yeah, I thought that was an odd pre-statement as well.
First of all, what do you do about people who chose not to have children? What do you do about people who got divorced and then had other children? That doesn't mean they were non-monogamous. It just means that they had one relationship and then they moved on to another one. And also, it very definitely, it talks about the benefits of monogamy being for one birth cycle, which is basically about having a baby and raising it for a little while. I mean, that's not really very long term, which is why, again, to your first question, I think a lot of people are now looking at the model of monogamy and asking themselves, is it really what I want? Which is why, for example, nowadays people talk about disclosed non-monogamy, which is where some people might call that polyamory, some people might call it an open relationship, but it's where you discuss with your partner, this kind of isn't enough for me for whatever reason, how would you feel about the fact that we introduce other people into this relationship? And again, Gen Z seem to be, and this is across the world. The Ashley Madison study was global, Canada, Mexico, Singapore. Gen Z are saying, we don't want that restriction. We don't want those labels anymore. We want to have more freedom.
It is interesting, though, isn't it? Because through the years of my disastrous dating life, often a man would say to me, "Oh, it's not natural for a man to be monogamous. We weren't designed that way. Biologically, we're meant to go and spread our seed. But women are more likely to be monogamous. We know that that's actually not true. The women being the most monogamous, but." Where that idea that it's okay for men, it's natural for men, but it's not natural for women. Is there any basis in truth of that?
Not necessarily, although men derive different kind of positive benefits from orgasm, which is obviously when they ejaculate, and that is in effect spreading their seed, whereas women are actually turned on and have more feel-good hormones released at different moments of the coupling. So there would be an almost physiological argument to say that men actually do almost have an inbuilt desire to try and sleep with as many people as possible, or at least to know, as one of my former partners put it, to at least know that there was a supermodel jacuzzi party that you could go to if you were free. Needless to say, I never really wanted them to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting that, monogamy it does fascinate me. Like you said, the longevity of life now, I don't know. 90 years with someone, I couldn't do it. Lucy, thank you very much indeed. Lucy Beresford, psychotherapist and broadcaster. Right, well, there you go. You've got your permissions now, or not. Right, coming up, it's the papers with Phil. He'll be here in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, there, and a very good evening to you. This is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. And don't forget, coming up at midnight, it is your opportunity to talk back. And what I'm asking you for midnight is how you feel about this amalgamation of these police forces that are going to go from 43 across England and Wales, potentially down to 12 across England and Wales. And what is the police service like in your area? I mean, I literally know just about London policing, but I can't imagine that you see police officers more than we do, although it wouldn't be impossible, because I can't remember the last time I saw a police officer actually walking down the street in London. Genuinely can't remember. You see them in cars, but they're not really out and about that I see anyway. So I just want to know, how often do you see a police officer? Do you feel protected? Do you feel that if a crime was committed against you, that you would get that immediate, that sort of 999 reaction? And I guess if you live in the countryside, it's a completely different story, isn't it? If you were burgled or somebody was in your house, you'd have to wait, 40 minutes perhaps for a police car to get to you. I don't know. So those are the sort of things I want to hear about, and how you would feel if that was even more of an area that the police were covering, if forces were joined together. So do give me a call on this, because I'm going to need your help on this, particularly if you are a serving police officer. We can change your name, or if you have served in the police service. And what would you do in order to save money, or to make it more efficient, or just to be the police that we think that we deserve, or that we feel that we should have, which I think we're probably setting our expectations a little high, at least I am. But surely the only reason they exist is for us, right? They're public servants. So do you feel served by the police? 03444991000. I'm duty bound to inform you that calls are charged at a national rate, but we do call you straight back. And you can text as well, put the word talk and then your message to 87222. Well, with me in the studio now, I'm thrilled to say, is the fabulous Phil Dave, talk broadcaster and editor. Phil, hello.
Hi, Lady Hosken.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm extremely well. It's good to see you.
Likewise. It feels like a very long time since we've been in the studio together.
It does. I don't know why. Oh, because you've done it down the line a couple of times.
I did do it down the line a couple of times, yeah. I think it was when you went through your phase of doing the pay-per-view hour at midnight. So I decided that I wanted to go to bed afterwards.
Well, that's
so I had
selfish.
to sort of do it down the line.
That's selfish, because we're all awake.
Yeah, but I had to get up at 6:30.
I don't care.
Wow.
The listeners need you.
Okay.
So at midnight, going to be talking.
I don't think many people think that, but thank you.
We're going to be talking about this shift in policing. What I was accused of being cynical by my guest. I can't imagine why he would say that, but I am cynical, and the reason I'm cynical is because it always feels like whenever there's a cost-cutting measure, whenever there's a reformation of something, it is us, the public, that lose out. It always gets worse for us, and we end up paying more for it. That's where my cynicism comes from, and this is what worries me about this.
I totally understand your cynicism, but I do have to say I think that most people could agree that policing in Britain, certainly in this day and age, just doesn't seem to be working. And what I have a major concern is that whilst we are busy squabbling amongst ourselves saying, don't reform the police, leave them alone, it's, you mustn't do anything, we're going to end up, all of this, it's fine, I understand it, but then more crime is being committed. Something needs to give, something needs to happen. So I'm actually more of the mindset that I would rather allow the Home Secretary to carry out whatever she wants to do, and then if, like under Theresa May, when she thought it was a good idea to slash 22,000 police officers, in hindsight realised that was the most dreadful mistake, lambast her for it. And that's the kind of attitude I have, because at least if we try and do something to improve the policing in this country, then we've got something to sort of fight back with and say, what the heck have you done? What have you done to the police? But as it stands now, policing just simply doesn't work.
I mean,
it worries me terribly.
It doesn't work. But again, as I was saying earlier on, if 43 is bad and 12 is better because there's more efficiency, why not just one? because that's where my logical brain goes to. In fact, Scotland just has the one police force now, and I can understand that there are savings to be made in terms of procurement. Why that isn't already there, I have no idea. But you've got various forces across the country, some paying a £5 for a stab vest and some paying 55 quid for a stab vest. I mean, it is ludicrous. But I can see those savings, but I always know that whenever savings are mentioned, it is at the cost of the public, and it concerns me that these police, wherever they're going to be located, whatever they're going to be doing, that the public will lose out.
Maybe, but then again, there are some cost-saving exercises that the police force could clearly do now across the country, because I know there are many police forces that do this already, that they could make various savings that would make a massive difference to the budget, but also would actually help focus on what matters, and that is tackling crime. So daft things like, for example, I can't count the number of police officers in the area where I live that have got rainbow flags painted all over them. I'm very pleased that the police are all inclusive. Of course they should be, but they shouldn't need to paint their cars to tell us this. And I don't even know how many thousands of pounds they must spend on painting those cars in those colours. I don't care. Fight crime. That's what you're there for, and that's what I want you to do. Exactly the same way that you see these police constabularies going on diversity drives as well. Again, I don't care the genetic makeup of a police officer, I care about them tackling crime. So there was this one rule that I think has single-handedly almost shattered policing across the UK, and this coming from someone who, let me make this very clear, I stand at 5'8" tall. I would not have been allowed to join the police force many years ago, because you had to be over a certain height in order to be a serving police officer, because they always thought that there was going to be a potential risk to that person's health, or indeed they wouldn't simply be strong enough to deal with a particular perpetrator. And they're quite right, I believe. And as a result of it now, since they scrapped that, you see police officers who patrol beats who really are as useless as I would be patrolling any streets, because I'm not an intimidating character by any stretch. I might know how to bark at somebody, but that's about it. Right? No one is going to be physically threatened by me. You want from a police force someone who's going to have sort of a certain stature that means that they have gravitas and presence, not to the point where they are intimidating unnecessarily, but you need to have respect for the fact that that officer is there to enforce the law. How can you enforce something if you appear physically not strong enough to enforce it?
Well, there are plenty of people who are not big, who are you know, incredibly powerful. I mean, I'm probably going to get fired for this, but our boss is not 6 foot tall, but he's a boxer.
No.
I wouldn't take him on.
No, well, I wouldn't either, because he pays my wages.
Yeah, but I mean, he is one lean, fit, you know, bloke. But you would,
totally
that's what I'm saying.
but...
So I'm saying that there are people who may not look physically intimidating, but by crikey, they could take down a couple of scrotes.
Look, I am the same height as the boss, so I don't feel too bad saying what I'm about to say. But I don't believe for a second that someone who is, say, 6'2", 6'3", something like that, just as sort of beefed up, if you like, who also maybe is into boxing, would stand a considerably better chance than someone who's my height, who might also be interested in boxing. And again, I'm not saying this about the boss. It's period. It's whoever.
I'm telling you what, I mean, he's vicious.
I'm merely getting at that there is some
he's a
logic.
very good fighter.
He absolutely is, but there's some logic in saying that someone who has a taller stature is more likely to have the force that is necessary behind a police force.
But I mean, again,
but that's just one example.
There are you know, tall blokes who are would be absolutely useless. You know, I mean, that, you know,
perfectly possible. But then that's why they go through fitness tests.
Yeah,
or at least they did.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that the police officer has to look a certain way. I'm not, because there are techniques and there are ways of getting around that. And as for women police officers, again, they're usually incredibly fit and incredibly well trained. So again, you wouldn't want to. They could take down a 6 foot bloke in a heartbeat.
Look, believe me, there are plenty of people out there who are different heights of what I am, that are considerably fitter than I am. You know, I get out of breath running a bath. They could run a marathon. I get it. I understand completely. It's not just about height. I'm using that as one example of how the police forces over the years have systematically been chopped up, ruined and just changed, and in just the focus has gone from tackling crime. Focus on crime. Don't focus on paperwork and whether or not you've ticked enough boxes. Just deal with the, it seems like, ever-rising amount of crime in this country.
Well, and that's the other thing, isn't it, as well, that crime it is rising, but it's also changing. It is becoming a lot more technical. It's becoming a lot more technological. You know, crime now, a lot of crime is done online. A lot of crime, you know, selling drugs or doing whatever, they've all gone technical. So policing has changed as well. So we not only need to see police officers out on the streets, but we need to know that there are really, really clever technological police officers who are looking at, you know, paedophiles sharing images, or you know, drugs lords selling through a kind of, you know, taxi service.
But I think actually it's very easy for people to blame the police and say that they're not doing their jobs properly and that they don't feel safe as a result of the police not doing their jobs properly. But let's just say hypothetically you get the world's most amazing police force. What's the point of having that if we don't have the justice system to match it?
Yeah, well,
so as soon as you actually get the police officers in check,
so frustrating.
What on earth is the point if all you're going to do is have your various cases either thrown out of court, or now if Lammy's got his way, just go before a judge who might be a little too lenient and say, oh, do you know what, I'm sure they didn't mean it, slap on the wrist, off you go. Well, what's the point?
Or be the other way, and wrongfully send people down for crimes that they didn't commit because of some bias or other. There is a real problem, and I don't really have a problem so much as with them sort of amalgamating and stuff. I mean, I did see this across the military for a very long time, and it created a lot of problems, and it's very, very expensive to do. So we're going to have to spend hundreds of millions on this before we see any cost cutting at all. And I don't trust that any money that we save will then go back into policing. That's the problem.
I have to say, though, that I don't actually ever recall a time when an organisation or a sort of, if you like, a company or anything like that was ever nationalised and it's done wonders. So look at what has happened, for example, over the years with the NHS. The NHS
broken up into all those trusts.
More and more. I mean, well, they've broken down into trusts, but ultimately there is very much national guidance that guides them through. Whereas years ago, you'd have sort of local communities who were funded, who would then look after their local communities accordingly. And they were considered, by all sort of romanticised accounts, considerably more efficient than they might be in this day and age. Equally, on a more trivial level, look at what happened, say, for example, to when regional television was a thing. My memory is that regional television, was far better than when those regions joined up to become one national broadcaster.
And that's sort of what I'm saying, is that you get those, if we take that as an analogy, the regional television stations joining together, they are no longer as local. Right, it's like the BBC, for example, with local radio, which is an absolute disgrace what they've done to that. It's disgusting. And they say, right, we'll just have a local breakfast show, but all the other shows will be
horrendous.
Will be national. And you're just moving further away from the people who pay your blooming wages. And that's what I worry about with this policing, is that you have a central hub, or whatever it is that they're going to do, which just withdraws the police away. And we've seen it with local radio, that there is now, they're trying to get rid of it, which is disgusting, and now they've only got a breakfast show that comes locally.
I can understand why people might listen to this show, which obviously is on a national channel, but at the same time we deal with national topics, and there, as a result of it, people come to us knowing what to expect. If you have a service that exists for local issues by local people that is suddenly taken away from them and turned into something it's not, then suddenly those individuals who rely on that local service become a bit, if you like, homeless in that sphere.
And that's exactly what I fear with the policing.
And I can understand completely why you'd think that would be the case with policing, and I must admit, I can see there being a problem with it.
Yeah.
But as I say, policing doesn't work now in its current form, so something has to give. It's like your first guest said earlier on this evening, sorry for listening to this at 5 o'clock in the morning, but, you know, sort of your guest said sort of in the 10 o'clock hour, that if we were to create the police force today, it wouldn't look like it is now. And I think Danny Shaw was spot on when he said that.
Yeah. It just really interesting. I just want to know what it's like out there in rural areas, in small towns, in villages, what the policing is like. So please do give us a call, because I genuinely want to know if you think this is going to impact you, this is going to make things worse for you. And I'm just far too cynical. Give me a call, 03444 991. A quick break, and then Phil and I'll be back with the papers in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very good morning to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me, Phil Dave, Talk broadcaster and editor. We were just talking about his cat Rufus, finding the Christmas tree fascinating.
Well, I mean, fascinating, I think, is a very diplomatic way of putting it. The truth is, he just seems to think it's there for his benefit and amusement. And
I don't have a tree, because I'm a Grinch, as you know, and also because I can't be bothered with that. You need to get trees like this.
Well, to be honest with you, I could also imagine that both Bailey and Humphrey would probably also see it as something for them to use.
Of course they would. There's no other option, especially since I hate going out in the rain. Yeah, just I'll do a tree for you.
Digital tree.
Digital tree.
Yeah.
I work very hard on those.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
It's very nice.
I got my Blue Peter badge, don't you worry about that. Now,
Is it digital?
The Daily Mail. Let's have a look at that. Stop Labour's grotesque puberty drug experiment on children. A top Tory calls trial on 220 children chemical castration as campaigners launch a bid to halt it. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I believe where I stand on it is possibly not the most popular answer for a lot of people, but I will be very clear. I believe that as much as I understand why some people might go through the early part of their life filled with confusion and thinking that their hormones are playing tricks on them and wondering whether or not that they are who they think they are, I believe that the only way to really be 100% sure you're doing the right thing is to wait until someone is at least the age of 21, never mind 18, because of course, as we know, development can still happen up until early 20s. And if by the age of 21 and above, someone is still insistent that they want to maybe look at changing genders or doing something like that, then I'd say, okay, that's up to them, they're an adult. But I don't believe for a second that a child absolutely categorically knows 100%, no doubt in their mind, that they want to do something this dramatic. And as far as I'm concerned, I think it's tantamount to child abuse.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is such a complicated issue, because I absolutely agree with you that the people of that age don't necessarily know their own mind, and growing up is confusing and all of those things. But the counter argument to doing a trial is to make it safer for the future. Not that I think there should be a future where children are taking these puberty blockers myself, but the earlier you block puberty, the better outcome for somebody who wants to transition from boy to girl. Because obviously you're not going to get the facial hair, you're not going to get the heavy bones, you're not going to get a lot of the male development that happens that doesn't happen with girls. I mean, I think transitioning from female to male, necessarily blocking hormones may not make that big a difference, but definitely from female to
male.
Male to female, it does. It makes
yeah,
a huge,
male to female absolutely would make a difference.
So that would be the counter argument to it, and also there are some people that would say, I always knew that I was in the wrong body, etc., etc. But I think erring on the side of caution, I think I would agree with you.
Look, I completely and utterly understand that counter argument, and I actually don't think it's unreasonable either, to be fair. But I have to suggest that as much as I understand that counter argument, the bottom line is I don't believe that there is enough scientific proof at the moment that an individual is born in the wrong body, other than just purely going on their feelings alone. And that worries me. That's a big problem, because people can have very confused feelings and very mixed feelings, and sometimes they might feel one way, sometimes they might feel another, and it's perfectly possible there'll be an individual out there who said, no, I've always known, I've always felt like this, and I've always known that this is what I want to do. Fine, I get that completely, but that doesn't negate the fact that it is possible that a child of this age doesn't know for certain, and by that time it's too late to do it. You've done irreparable damage to that person.
I mean, I completely agree.
It's too much risk. So if there is a way of developing something that categorically proves that someone is born in the wrong body, there is maybe something that is yet to be discovered in science, maybe some sort of DNA strand, some sort of anything, I don't know, it's not my field, I'm not sure. But if there's a way of proving it without any doubt, then I might say, okay, I understand this more.
Yeah, and there is a massive fear in the gay community that this drive towards being transgender, or this drive towards easing the path for that, is going to erase homosexuality, because many people who might think that they are transgender are struggling with being gay. And actually, I was reading a report not long ago where children at school are saying it's easier to say that you're a trans person than it is to say you're gay. If you say you're transgender at school, you are more protected and less bullied than if you say, I think I might be gay. So that is also a concern as well, that there is that, it's almost, you get more attention or more help or more support if you say you're transgender rather than saying you're potentially gay.
Yeah, but we also should remember as well how easily influenced some children can be, and if they think this is fashionable and just go with it for that alone, I'm on a really sort of almost trivial level. I distinctly remember there were people when I was at school, yes, I know it was a while ago, said before any crude remarks, but when I was at school, I distinctly remember there were people who were so desperate for glasses that they would, before opticians sort of developed various bits of technology that categorically proved whether or not someone absolutely needed glasses or not, they would go purely by the sight test alone, and they would say, is this better or worse without? They'd say better, but of course they're making this up because they want glasses.
No way.
Seriously. So my point is that if someone can do, I know obviously it's sort of slightly more difficult now because they actually can x-ray eyes and stuff like that and check it to see if that's actually the case or not. But my point is that if someone wants to do that for the fashion of it, is this just going to be another fashionable thing to do?
It is just such a minefield, isn't it? I mean, even discussing it feels like a minefield. But
I also think it's very easy for us to sit here and to say what we say because we were obviously not questioning the bodies we were born in. So,
I know.
well,
Can you
I actually do question the waistline I was given.
Okay.
But other than that, I don't question it.
No, I think that I do. I think you're right, and I think there'll be parents listening who are going, yeah, but you haven't got a kid that is convinced, or you haven't.
Absolutely.
And I get that. And I
that.
completely get that as well. It must be incredibly difficult.
But it still doesn't stop me worrying about it.
No, exactly. And like you said, it can do irreparable damage, especially since, you know, there have been people who've even gone for surgery and things like that and then regretted it. So
I'm fairly sure there was someone I was reading about the other day who has transitioned or is trying to transition for a third time on the NHS. I'm fairly sure I'm right about this. So I think what happened is they transitioned, for argument's sake, male to female. Then they thought they'd made a mistake, went back female to male, and now they think, no, actually it wasn't a mistake, I should have done it, and now trying to go back male to female again.
Gosh.
I don't know to what extent the surgery was. I just remember reading it thinking, surely that can't be right, offering 3 transitional surgeries.
No, I think you'd offer more mental health support. Perhaps.
But make no mistake, I mean, again, I'm not in that position. I don't know what it's like, but at the same time, it stood out to me as a very odd case.
Yeah, and I don't think any adult transitions just for the fun of it either, because what a journey to have to go through. Extraordinary.
You might not believe this. I've always said I actually have admiration for people who want to do it, because I can't
genuinely
even begin to imagine the mental struggles they go through, but not to mention what they must go through trying to convince their friends and family.
Yeah, convincing your family, and maybe you're married or you've got kids, and then, oh God, I mean, honestly, it's bravery beyond anything I can think of. Let's quickly look at the eye before we head to a break. UK set to turn back the clock on Brexit and rejoin EU's student exchange scheme from January 2020. That's not exactly turning back the clock on Brexit. So this is the Erasmus programme, so that young people and universities and things like that, they can travel all around the area.
Yeah, I mean, this is not actually that new news, because Labour have said it for ages.
Yeah.
They've always said that they would do this. I do have to say that I think it goes to show the level of disregard that Labour have got for the voting public. They clearly never liked the outcome of the EU referendum, and they are sort of clearly determined bit by bit to rejoin, within reason.
Don't you think though that once the fog cleared of Brexit, right, the fog cleared, it all settled, there were things that even if you voted for Brexit, that you thought, I didn't want to lose that as well. So that if we can cherry pick those things, like the Erasmus scheme, like, you know, even a young people's visa, so that they can't live here, they can't claim here, but they can travel here and work here, and the same with British people, then that's good. That's a good thing, because we did, in a lot of ways, throw a lot of babies out with the bathwater. There were things that nobody realised that we would lose, like, for example, our ability to send people back to France. If you could cherry pick that, which we were able to do whilst we were part of the EU, why wouldn't you?
Look, I believe if you, in particular, if you talk about that, I mean, my argument would be, what are France going to do if we do send people back to them? Do you know what I mean? Well, they haven't exactly helped us.
No.
So,
but they could, within the law, they could send them back again. I mean, that's
they could, but we could bounce them back again. Do you know what I mean?
During Brexit, before Brexit, we could dump them there, and that was fine.
We could, but at the same time, I would argue that it to me was never enough of an argument to say that I wanted some individual in Brussels telling me how bright my light bulb should be.
I'm not saying that, Phil. I'm suggesting that once the fog has cleared and we've seen that there were certain things that actually were quite good, if we could cherry pick those, not rejoin, but cherry pick those and have them back, why wouldn't we?
I would say it has to be proven that the UK would heavily benefit from it without having to pay a cost, like a massive cost.
Like youth visas, fine.
Then I would say fair enough. But it would also have to be on the UK's terms, not on the EU's terms.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't see that. I know that there were a lot of things that happened. I didn't vote to leave the EU, but you know, it happened. So, but there are things that you go,
arguably it hasn't completely happened, but yeah.
Well, there are things that we shouldn't have let go of. And
maybe to some, but
if we can cherry pick those and take them back, it doesn't mean that we're back under Brussels' umbrella. It just means that we can do those things.
As long as it benefits the UK and it's not the EU trying to make us pay for leaving the European Union, then I personally don't care one way or another.
Well, we still owe them billions anyway. Let's not go there. Right, let's take a quick break. Phil and I'll be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it is Petrie, and with me, Phil Dave, Talk broadcaster and editor. The Sun newspaper for Thursday, Davina weds in secret. So Davina McCall has wed for the third time, secretly marrying her boyfriend, celebrity hairdresser Michael Douglas, just 3 months after they confirmed their engagement. That's so sweet.
I'm very
They're a
happy for them.
couple.
I am not in the least bit convinced, no disrespect to our friends and colleagues at The Sun, I'm not in the least bit convinced it's front page, but look, if at the same time it sells papers
it's good
and
news.
people are happy.
We need some good news. Good on you, Davina. I'm happy for you. She's been through a lot of health crises recently.
Oh,
so
absolutely. And listen,
good for her.
I personally, I've never met Davina McCall, but she always comes across as a very nice person,
Yep.
and I hope she is.
I've not heard anything bad about her, and he's adorable.
And,
so
and bearing in mind that we know there are some people in this world, in this industry, who come across as nice but are absolutely vile.
we know
So,
a lot of those.
yes. So as far as I'm concerned, as long as they are
Send
good
me a
people.
fiver and I'll...
No, please don't do that.
I'm joking.
So, but you know, as long as they are good people and they're sort of they're not going down a path of sort of being like those who we might have just alluded to, then knock yourself out, enjoy, have a good life.
Have a good life,
I'm just not convinced it's front page. I'm sorry.
No, but it is a good bit of news. There's another, there's a flag at the top of the page as well about Simon Cowell, who I was just saying. Now, Phil didn't get this reference, but when you were at school, did you ever go to the Natural History Museum? And there was a peat bog man. Do you remember Pete Bogman? I can't remember what he was called, but they found this whole man. Anybody who's my age would go, oh, I know that. They found this person in a peat bog, still with his shoes on and things like that, which they had in the Natural History Museum. But they had a reconstruction of what he would have looked like. That's this picture of Simon Cowell. He looks like Pete Bogman. He looks like the reconstruction. Anyway, Simon Cowell says, I take 4 baths a day. He must be like a wrinkly prune.
I was going to say, no wonder his skin's wearing away. Good grief.
4 baths a day. He says, I have 200 of the same T-shirt. Well, we know that.
Yeah,
that's
that's
all we see him
obvious,
in.
yeah.
And he never wears
stop
pants more than once.
That
I used
is
to know somebody
ridiculous.
who didn't wear socks more than once. I know somebody who didn't wear socks. Yeah, always threw socks away. He was always buying new socks. Always threw socks away.
I'm really sorry to say this. Now, you know I'm not exactly what one might describe as an environmentalist, but I think that's revolting.
Pants
What
don't
a
get
waste.
worn twice.
That is such a waste. I hate waste. That is awful.
It's terrible, isn't it?
That is shocking. I'm sorry, but I mean,
but what does that tell you about him? I mean, that tells me
I think he's pants. But
that tells me that he's not. You know, he may be taking baths, but there's something going on down there. That he has to wear.
Can you not do that
pants.
when I've just taken a mouthful of water, please?
That he has to wear new pants every day. There's something going on down there.
Maybe it has a bad reaction to the surgery, allegedly.
Who knows? Oh, Simon Cowell. What a...
Gracious.
Right, let's have a look at the Times. Fresh deal to avert doctor strike offers opportunity but not cash. This sounds like a fair exchange.
Yeah, I mean, doctors will vote on calling off a 5-day strike next week after Wes Streeting, who's the health secretary, of course, has promised to give them priority for NHS jobs over foreign medics. I would agree with that, absolutely.
I don't know why that isn't a thing anyway.
I was going to say, of course it should be a thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the government has offered the BMA, the British Medical Association, a fresh deal yesterday to end long-running pay disputes, and the union apparently has agreed to put the offer to its members. So that's a start, but we'll see.
Well, this needs to be called off because we've got that flu thing going on at the moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. I literally have zero respect for any member of the NHS who thinks it's acceptable to strike. Don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting for a moment that all members of the NHS are treated fairly or right. I don't think they are, but I think to strike and put patients' lives at danger, to me, says they don't care enough about the job. Just saying.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that either. The other story on the front is net zero plan to cost households £500 a year. This is Ed Miliband again. Plans to get Britain net zero by 2050, costing the country. I know, country 350 billion more than a slower approach, and this is after Rachel Reeves was going, we're going to save you £150 a year. And I said at the time of the budget, I said, no, it doesn't, because they're going to make us pay for this new infrastructure, which will go on our bills, which equals more than that £150. So here we go, proof.
I plead if you don't get me started, because you might not shut me up. But as I said there, sort of like rather frustratingly, there is no such thing as net zero. So this stupid premise of we can be carbon neutral is just impossible.
Yeah,
so I really wish that we would stop falling for this nonsense, because
I don't think we do fall for it. I just think Ed Miliband bangs on about it.
Yeah, but a lot of people do, and unfortunately what it means is that taxes are being driven up as a result of it. Now, if they were to rephrase it slightly and to suggest that the country could go greener and more energy efficient, I might jump on board on that, because I would say, yeah, okay, maybe there's a point to that, but I would only agree to it if it benefits my pocket. If it's going to cost me more, I don't buy it. I'm not interested. Yeah. Absolutely not interested. I didn't vote for this. I don't want it. I'm not interested in net zero at all. £500 more a year. Where am I supposed to get that from?
I know. It's just, this is what I mean. Everything just costs us more and more and more at the moment. It's so depressing. Anyway, and earliest proof of humans making fire found in the UK. The earliest evidence of humans making fire has been unearthed in an abandoned clay pit in Suffolk, and it's being hailed as amongst the most remarkable archaeological discoveries made on British soil.
Well, the novelty wears off when you live in Watford, trust me, you see enough fires there.
The discovery dates from 400,000 years ago. Wow. See, I love all this stuff.
It is amazing, don't get me wrong. Because especially when you sort of, I know that a lot of religions believe that sort of humans date back only a few thousand years, but actually the truth is it's hundreds of thousands. Of course there were just no records in that way before, so we don't really know. But this obviously is something in the way of proof, which I think is fantastic. Of course there are going to be cynics out there who are saying, how can you tell it's 400,000? Believe me, archaeologists have got their way. So
they're very smart. The Daily Express, they cannot be trusted with Brexit. Keir Starmer is accused of handing our country over to Brussels as Rachel Reeves became the latest cabinet minister to hint at joining an EU customs union. Well, there are plenty of that was one of the options we looked at. There are plenty of countries who are in the customs union that are not in the EU.
Well, I mean, listen, bearing in mind that back in the day when the vote actually was put forward by the Tories whether or not they wanted to enter the common market, I actually think you'll find that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily disagree
back in 75
entering
something like that.
Yeah, was it in the, I can't remember the exact year, but whatever it was. But the point is, if you sort of, I think there'll be plenty of people who won't necessarily disagree with the idea of entering a trading bloc, as long as it's not exclusive, we're allowed to do other deals. But of course, again, as long as there's benefit to it and not a hindrance.
Yeah, I don't think, see, the interesting thing is that I don't think we would ever have got that while we were in the EU. But now we've been out of the EU, we are more likely to get it. And again, Brexit has cost us hundreds of millions of pounds in GDP. So if we can cherry pick that, then but not be part of the EU, like there are countries, the Scandinavian countries that are in the customs union but not in the EU. I don't see why not. If it makes us money.
I'm all for it. The only thing I worry about is that I believe there will be an awful lot of people who also think like this, those of us who did vote to leave the European Union, did it for a very good reason, and I know that there are plenty of surveys that have been done since that suggest that those who voted to leave the European Union regret it. I have absolutely no regrets. Give me the vote tomorrow, I would vote to leave again. I have never changed my mind on that, and I know many people who haven't either. However, what I've not been very impressed with is the way that our rebellious politicians who clearly didn't want to leave the European Union have not necessarily taken full advantage of it. Anyway,
we would never have a better trading deal than one we had with the EU because of the size of it. Well, we would never. We haven't been able to replace it.
If we plonk that slightly to one side, my argument more would be, listen, I didn't mind about trade. It was, to me, it was everything else that came with it that bothered me. But let's put all of that to one side for the moment, because my point being is that I worry about, and I know others feel the same way, is that now this current government are going to try and sort of nip back in piecemeal, if you like, and just sort of disguise it and say that we're just doing this, we're just doing this, and before you know it, we're suddenly, vroom, right back in under EU law, because they say, oh, if we want this, then we've got to do this. If we want that, we've got it. And it terrifies me. I don't want it. Don't want to go back to that world. Yeah. I'm not interested. Right.
Well, we're going to find that we're going to have to be closer anyway because of the threat of Russia. But anyway.
Well, we can be close to them without having to be told what to do by them.
Yeah. Right, the Daily Star, news with a wink. Or
something similar.
Something similar, yeah. Champ Luke's £50 a week pocket money. This is the 47-year-old
very good
darts
I like
ace. I do that joke all the time. Sam's in there going, oh, not again. Luke Littler, who's actually, what, 20 or something, 19, 20?
I was going to say, I don't think he's that. I think he's
19.
Is he?
18, he's 18.
I was going to say, he's like 17, 18 years old, isn't he?
He's 18. Darts ace Luke Littler is so grounded, he only gets 50 quid a week pocket money. So there you go.
Good on him. I hope that he never gets too big for his boots. I dare say that sort of being propelled into the limelight at such a young age, it's almost inevitable that he might do. But so far he seems very grounded and good on him.
He seems like such a nice lad. And I'm sorry I take the mick out of you, but Luke, but
well,
honestly,
you never tell me that he's 16, 17, 18, whatever he is. I'm sorry. He looks older than me.
I know.
Well,
Bless
almost.
Him. Bless him. But he is a sweetheart by all accounts. So that's a good thing. That is a really good thing.
But hey, good on him. I can't throw a dart to save my life. So.
Yeah. No. Well, wasn't it the TalkSport dart competition tonight?
It was today, wasn't it?
Today. Yeah, but is it just the presenters playing?
Yes.
Oh.
Presenters having a dart competition.
People went to watch that.
It was very good. Of course, the whole lot was actually broadcast on TalkSport. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's great radio. Do you know what? In the Falklands, their #1 sport was radio darts.
Oh.
That's their #1 sport.
Do you know what? I love I know what people, when you say great radio, but actually the truth is, I did listen to some of it. It was gripping. It was really compelling.
I mean, I was joking, but yeah, in the Falklands, they love their radio darts.
I don't blame them. I like darts. I don't mind watching it.
They get a lot of practice at TalkSport. Do you know, they've got a room, we don't, with a dartboard in it, and they can go and play in there. What do we get? Nothing.
I actually did go and have a go at that the other day.
Yeah, we get nothing.
No. We can play hide and seek.
Yeah, we could play hide and seek. Can you imagine?
There are certain people in this building who are very good at hiding from me.
Yeah, they're like most of the management with their clipboards. Oops. Right, quick break. We'll come back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and with me Phil Dave, broadcaster and editor here at Talk. I've got a couple of messages here. It was the Bogman of Lindau.
Well, no wonder I'd never heard of what the hell you were talking. Who were you talking? The peat? What did you say?
I said the peat man. He was found in a peat bog.
Right.
It was a peat bog.
Maybe his name was Pete.
I don't. Maybe they did call him Pete. I don't remember. No. It was definitely a peat bog. Anyway, Ian remembers it, and he said it was found by chance in 1984. Very interesting.
Well, that was 2 years before I was born. So
well.
You know.
It's still history.
It's true.
And it was very, very impressive. It was a whole body, and I remember a few years later there was a big conversation about that he should be treated. You know, he should be buried and not just on display as a human being.
I'd say there's an argument to that.
Yeah,
but
so
you know, actually, it has to be said though that as much as I never understand why people argue saying, "Oh, it was before I was born," I'm fairly sure Henry VIII was a long time before all of us were born.
And we still know about him.
And many people know about him. So actually, there's not really an excuse to not know about something. It was history.
Exactly. And this was a perfectly preserved body. Like I said, even his leather shoes. I was fascinated by the shoes.
Who got the shoes?
Even his leather shoes were intact. It was extraordinary. And you could still see the clothing that he was wearing. It was absolutely extraordinary. Ian, you know the reconstruction picture they had of what he would look like, Simon Cowell, dead on, so spot on. That's how we got onto this conversation. And Gary said that Simon Cowell has clearly read Julio Iglesias' autobiography because he never wears the same white shirt twice.
Oh.
What's wrong with these people?
I'm sorry, I actually think it's a really bad look when you've got people who are struggling to find food some days, to then go boasting that you've got that much money that you can then change clothes on a daily basis. And I'm not talking about change clothes as in most people change clothes on a daily basis, but then to never wear it again, I'm sorry, I just don't think it's a good look. That's
ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. All right, let's have a look at the Daily, thank you for those messages, by the way, for the Daily Mirror. Is 3.5 billion war on homelessness, which I am really, really happy with. The scandal of rough sleepers and families trapped in B&Bs will be tackled in a new 3.5 billion war on homelessness.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I mean, Shelter says 382,618 people face a bleak Christmas with no proper home. Now that doesn't mean they're sleeping on the streets, but it does mean that they're possibly in B&Bs, you know, they haven't got a home.
Look, technically speaking, you know, people who sleep on a friend's sofa can be homeless.
Yeah.
They just might not be, as you say, on the streets. What annoys me though is that the amount of homelessness has increased somewhat due to an influx of people who have chosen to come to this country by certain means without actually necessarily securing their roots here. So of course you may actually see more people sleeping on the streets, but they weren't necessarily sort of made homeless by this country's actions, and yet it's this country's, if you like, responsibility in inverted commas to prevent them or stop them being homeless, and I disagree with that. My argument would be is that we should be prioritising people who are, say, homeless veterans. You know, they're the ones that I want to see picked up off the ground.
I want to see everybody who's sleeping on a street in the rain and the cold housed before we turn to B&Bs.
I understand it's a nice thought, but what I'm trying to get at is that there are people who have wound up here by, I would argue, potentially some quite nefarious methods, and as a result of it, that's what's increased the homelessness levels, whereas my priority...
Well, most of those are in hotels.
But there are a considerable number of them in hotels, absolutely. Yeah. But my preference would be to veterans who have found themselves homeless because so traumatised by the experience they've been through, they can't really secure life and they just wind up on the street. I think is horrendous. One of the other things that even I find, and I'm pretty heartless as a person, but even I find tugs at the old strings, is when you see young teenagers on the ship. I cannot get my head around that. How on earth is that allowed to happen?
And how many of them sleep on buses and things like that? I mean, my other producer travels on a train after the show, and she said she often sees the same people on that train sleeping.
Yeah.
It's
No,
sad.
I could listen. I get it. I understand it. But there was actually one thing that sort of gives me a teensy-weensy bit of hope. Sorry, because I know we've got to keep this tight. But teensy-weensy bit of hope in the sense that near in my neck of the woods, where I actually saw there was a chap who I think was about 18, 19, sat outside the local supermarket, or one of the local supermarkets, and a lady came up to him, had a chat, and just started chatting. And he explained how he's 18, 19. She said, "I'm so sorry to hear that you are in this situation." She said, "What do you want? I'm going to go get it for you." She went to the supermarket and got, and it's actually scenes like that that make me realise there are some good people in this life.
Yeah, there are. I think there are more good than bad. But I have to so I can sleep at night. Now, let's move on to The Guardian. This. I'm never going to the US again, well, while Trump's there anyway. Visitors to the United States could have to reveal 5 years of social media activity. Trump plan would also demand disclosure of relatives' personal details. Get stuffed. And also, they would take one look at me, my job, and I wouldn't get an ESTA. This is just to get that form, just a visa to go on holiday.
I saw this obviously in the news in the past 24 hours, and it's sort of it just confuses me, because I'm not entirely sure what the benefit is. You know, I mean, I understand sort of the premise and what he's trying to do, but I don't see it as being something that is going to necessarily benefit the security of the US.
Well, people have been deported for doing memes of J.D. Vance. So, I mean, it's not about criminal record. I mean, this is the irony of this is, you know, we're big on the freedom of speech, First Amendment rights, and all of that stuff, which we know is absolutely factually completely wrong, as he tries to shut down any news agency that speaks out against him. But you know, if you've got any anti-Trump stuff on there, or any MAGA Trump on there, they're already denying you access. They're just saying this is now just on holiday visas as well. So not that I would go to that country right now. Absolutely not. I wouldn't be allowed to anyway. I
think it's a very odd path to tread, and excuse me. What I find more annoying is that I feel like Trump would be the first person, quite rightly, to speak out against, say, our government, who has also got a bit of a track record now of coming down heavy on people who have said some hurty words on social media. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you can't. Yeah,
but he can't take it. It's like a lot of bullies. They can't. You know, he can't take it himself, while saying that other people should. So
no, but that's what I mean. So I don't like the hypocrisy surrounding it. To me, it's absolutely no better than pinpointing our government and saying, look, you know, you can't go bunging someone behind bars because they've said something you don't like on social media, when he's now doing exactly the same. And I'm not necessarily...
To be fair, we didn't put that person behind bars for saying something hurty. That was an incitement.
No, I'm not
which
using...
is different.
No. But what I'm saying is the fact that you've actually sort of got an example now of social media being used as the catalyst, if you like, for someone ending up in prison.
But they want your email. I mean, as if you give them all of this stuff. In notice published on Tuesday, the US Customs and Border Protection Agency said it would also require phone numbers used by visitors over the same period, email addresses used in the past decade.
Do you think anyone's that desperate to go to the US?
As well as face, fingerprint, DNA and iris biometrics, names, addresses, birth dates and birthplaces of family members, including children, will be required too. That is identity. That's your entire identity you're handing over to the American state.
Yeah, you're all right.
Get stuffed. I just get stuffed. Who's going to do that?
But that's what I'm saying. I don't believe anyone is that desperate to go to the US.
No,
that they
not
do
at the moment.
That.
No.
So, I mean, I'm not necessarily...
That is your entire life they want.
I'm not personally anti-Trump per se, but I am certainly questioning this as of all the things he could be doing. I think this is quite strange.
The plan would throw a wrench into the World Cup, which the US is co-hosting with Canada and Mexico. Yeah, it certainly will. The California tourism authorities are predicting a 9% decline for foreign visits to the state this year. That is
9%.
huge.
I'm surprised it's as low as that, to be honest.
It is huge. Hollywood Boulevard reported a 50% fall.
Eek.
Eek. Yeah, I just absolutely. There are words I want to say, but I can't because I want to keep my job. We've pretty much run out of time, Phil. To be honest with you, let's see if there's any lighter. There's no lighter stories.
No lighter, really? But I would say, if it's possible, just to say the one line from the Daily Telegraph: Lammy plans to wipe child criminal records. Lammy, just please. Just stop.
Just keep prisoners in jail that are meant to be in jail, and let those out that are meant to be let out. It's not difficult. Phil Day, thank you very much indeed. Talk broadcaster and editor. And stay with me now, because it's your chance to talk back. And I want to hear from you about what policing's like where you live.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. This is Petrie here, and this is your chance to talk back. And I've started something with this Bogman of Linda. Thank you, Ian, again for reminding me of that. Nigel says the body found in the bog was called Pete Marsh, and you know, I seem to remember that they did call him Pete because he was found in a peat bog. So I seem to sort of remember that, but I do remember his shoes. So I remember that. But thank you very much indeed, Nigel and Ian, for that. So any other recollections of the Bogman of Lindo, please let me know. Right, the conversation for this morning. What we are talking about is policing, because the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is considering radical reforms that would drastically reduce the number of police forces. So not necessarily the numbers of police, but at the moment there are 43 forces around England and Wales. There's only one force around Scotland, Police Force Scotland. And what they plan to do is reduce the overall number and amalgamate a couple here and a couple there and create bigger areas. Because there's going to be, I don't know, there's going to be some cost savings in procurement, HR, things like that. But what does concern me about this, whenever we hear about cost-saving measures, and there's no doubt that policing is in a crisis, right? We know that, and I don't believe it's the fault of the individual men and women that work within the institution, but it is in crisis, and you never know, this might help, but it just worries me because already we're seeing a police service, because it was changed from being a force to a service, although somehow people are calling it a force again. But the service that we get is already not brilliant, and the retreating of the police services away from the public is there for everybody to see. We all see it or don't see it, right? So I can't remember when I last saw a real police officer. I've seen sort of PCS, whatever they're called, PCSOs, are they, wandering about looking at litter. But I haven't seen any actual, and I live in Shepherd's Bush, right? So it's not exactly the calm, leafy areas of London you'd imagine that someone like me would live in. It's a bit grunty and dirty, but we don't really see them. We see them in cars zooming about, but we don't really see them around. And it worries me, the idea of reducing the number of forces means that we will see them even less. That there will be a centralised hub, there will be a retreating of police officers to those areas, and that certainly it's not happening in London, right? So this isn't about London, but it could happen in and is likely to happen in other areas around the country. So you've got a lot of rural areas where you probably very rarely see police officers anyway. But can you imagine if they're now looking after double the area? You know, like Norfolk and Suffolk, they're talking about being one of the first to do this too. And I also wonder about the hierarchy, the structure. Having seen this happen with many regiments in the armed forces, it wasn't an easy process, it really wasn't. And I don't think the armed forces is better for it either, to be honest with you, because with a reduction of regiments, they did reduce the number of soldiers. And that's what concerns me with this. Because I've seen it happen with the military, my concern is that once they reduce the number of forces there are around the country, that hand in hand with that will come the reduction in the numbers of police officers, although they're not saying that at the moment, but that certainly absolutely happened when regiments were amalgamated in the army. So that is my experience, and of course we know, don't we, whenever we see savings being made, it always comes at a cost, and the cost will be to you and me, it won't be to them. So I want to hear from you about what policing is like where you are, because I only live in London. I stepped out for a year and hastily stepped back in, but this has been my home for decades, so it's all I know, really. So I'd like to hear from you out in the countryside, out in small towns, out, you know, in areas like, I don't know, Devon and Plymouth, all the way around the country, Manchester, Liverpool, up, you know, and even in Scotland, actually. I'd love to hear from you. You've got one force there now. Is it better? Because you've gone the way that we're thinking of going. Is policing better in Scotland now because there's only one police force? Has it improved everything? Because my fear is that this will improve nothing, and in fact make things worse for us. 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at a national rate, but we do call you straight back. And you can text the word talk and your message to 222. So I also would love to hear from you if you're a serving police officer anywhere in the country, or we've changed your name if you don't want to get into trouble, or you're retired, or you've worked with the police, or you've worked around the police, because I think we need to understand more what's going wrong with the police at the moment in order to put it right. And is this the right decision to make? We used to have 249, I think, forces around the country. That was then reduced to 117, and then in the 60s that was reduced to 43, and now they're looking at reducing it potentially to 12. So, has policing got better because of the reductions? I don't know, you tell me. You tell me. Again, the number 0344 499 1000. Alison has said, I was a police officer and the worst part was the mountains of paperwork. That has to be the first problem to solve. It takes up so much time and therefore fewer officers are on the streets. The offence of wasting police time should be used more. Alison, thank you very much indeed. I think AI will probably help with that, although you do need human beings, don't you? This is what worries me. Lowry is in Merseyside. Good morning, Lowry. How are you?
Good morning. I'm getting better, thank you. I was assaulted and robbed on Sunday morning.
Oh, bless your heart.
It was pretty horrible.
What happened?
I went to get a parcel out of my porch, and I was greeted by what I think was an East European man who was taking the parcel, and as he took it, I said, "Come on, that's mine." And he leant over, he pushed me over, and I banged my head, hurt my back.
Oh my goodness.
All the beggar had got was a bottle of wine that I'd ordered from Amazon or one of those places. It was horrible though, and it was...
That's so shocking in your own home.
Yeah, he didn't actually get beyond the porch. He pushed me, I banged my head against the door, and was a bit shaken up, obviously.
Good heavens, I'd be more than a bit shaken up.
Well, I was very upset, and it wasn't very nice at all. But I have to say, by the time I felt better, it was the next morning, and my relative said, "You've got to ring the police. Somebody else will be getting assaulted if you have been."
Yeah.
And the two police officers came, both perfectly attired. They were really pleasant. They were very supportive. They took an in-depth statement from me, said what they were going to do, which I live on an over 55 estate, and they went around all the houses on the estate. I'd seen this guy run across the car park, and that was as much I could give to them as regards what happened next, sort of thing. But these two officers were charming. They were really nice. They were very supportive. I think one of them asked me, did I want him to make me a drink or something like that.
Did they come quite quickly?
Yes, they did. The only thing I was told is you don't dial 999 for something like that. You dial 101.
Right.
For it to less of a emergency than perhaps other things. And no, I was totally impressed by saying it was Tellings Police. I live in a village called Rainford, but no, they were very, very nice and very pleasant to me. I must admit I haven't heard anything since. Perhaps there's been nothing else to report.
Oh, well, hopefully that there'll be people with Ring doorbells.
Yeah.
Have you thought about getting one?
Yes, and they did suggest to me that I had one. And I was stupid. My front door wasn't locked. It wasn't locked because I was getting ready to go to church on Sunday morning.
You mustn't blame yourself.
No, but, this guy just kicked like hell on the front door. And it was the noise on the front door that I shut downstairs. Like, what's the matter? What do you want? And he had this parcel of mine under his arm.
What a scumbag.
He was a scumbag. He was horrible.
I mean, really, there's so much of this going on at the moment with parcels being stolen.
I believe
I had
so.
I had one stolen. I mean, there was nothing happened to me. It was delivered and left, and it was stolen, and it's been quickly sorted out. But it is so bad that these absolute scumbags go and get a job. What's wrong with you? And attacking a woman on her own in her own porch. It's disgusting.
Yeah, this man was definitely an East European. You know, his facial appearance and everything was that of an East European, and he wasn't Indian, he wasn't Pakistani, he was definitely East European.
Well, I mean, hopefully they catch him, and hopefully on your estate, because a lot of people do have those there are other brands, but for want of a better expression, those Ring doorbells that record all the time, because people, mind you, they're just covering their faces now.
Yeah, or breaking the Ring doorbells off.
I mean, honestly.
The policeman said that they can easily be removed. But no, I now have a well-locked home with a chain across the door. I wouldn't dream of opening it without.
Oh, that's just, I'm so sad about that, Larry, because if it makes you feel unsafe in your home, that is horrible. You know, that's the worst of it. It's the fear of opening your own front door. Yeah,
it makes me feel, well, the estate I'm on should have CCTV, but Jigsaw, the company that own or run the estate, they're too damn mean to put CCTV up.
No, maybe, oh, well.
Considering everybody's over 55, it will be a decent thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we can't ask them what the reasons are, because so they can't tell us what the reasons are. But if I was you, I'd get together with all the other people who live on that estate and say, right, well, you know, we should do it ourselves. It's not that expensive anymore.
No.
So it's worth talking to other people and just seeing what security measures you can put in place, like lights that come on every time people walk through the street or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
there are a lot of that's the strange thing. As I'm talking to you now, there is a lot of light in the area, but at 9, it was about 10 to 9, I think, in the morning. It must have been because I was going up to the church.
Yeah, of course. So it was a morning attack, wasn't it?
It was morning, yeah.
Well, I'm so sorry that happened to you, Larry, but I am really pleased to hear that the police were good with you.
They were very, very nice. And I've had a heart attack in the last 20 months, and the ambulance service is also very, very good round here.
Oh, I'm glad you're being looked after.
Yeah.
Good. Well, you listen, you take care of yourself and stay safe. That's Larry there in Merseyside, who said that the police were really, really good with her. But what do you think about the idea of this reducing the number of police forces? I can't help but worry that that's going to be a reduction in protection. I can't help but think that, because I've seen that before. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. I've got to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. This is Talk and it is Petrie here with you. We're talking about policing, and I really want to know what it's like in your area, because Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, is considering radical reforms that could see the number of forces reduced from 43 to 12 across England and Wales. A couple of messages here. This is from Kaz. She said, "Evening, Petrie, I love the trees." Thank you. I spent hours decorating them. Took me ages, but I'm glad you appreciate them. Our local police station closed down in Barkingside a long time ago. There's lots of shoplifters at the local shops in Hainault. Redbridge Council spent a tidy few grand opening up an enforcement hub for the locals here. It's never opened. The only time you ever see a policeman is in the kebab shop. They've let me down in the past and I have no faith now. Do you know what that's just reminded me of, Kaz? That has do you remember, I don't know if it was just in London, but for a while they would put the cardboard cutouts of police officers in shops and on streets because they were convinced that put people off from being criminal. Literal cardboard cutout, costing thousands probably, of police officers to convince people not to commit a crime. I mean, you could not. I haven't got the intelligence to make up something that ridiculous. That is true. That's a true story. True story. Oh, and Gary says, Scotland's single police force, Police Scotland, is worse off due to the loss of local accountability and community links, significant financial pressure and budget cuts since its formation in 2013. Gary, thank you so much for that, because that is exactly what I fear from this reducing forces from 43 to 12 is the loss of local accountability and community links. That is what is going to make us worse off. This is not going to be good for us, for you and me. But thank you, Gary. I always rely on you. Thank you so much. That's exactly what I was thinking this is going to be the problem. Anyway, let's get back to your calls now. Paul is in Horsham. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Petra. How are you?
I'm extremely well. How are you?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you very much.
Good.
I live in Horsham.
Uh-huh.
I was walking, it was quite a while now, I was walking through, I think it's called West Street or East Street in Horsham, town centre. Mm-hmm. There's this lovely guy and his girlfriend, I think they're about 19, 20 years old, they're buskers. And he knows how to play electric guitar. He's got a shoebox by his feet with lots of money in it because people appreciate him. Yeah. He's always there. And he plays some of my best records. Yeah. Yeah. Well, one day I walked past and there you go, 2 police officers. One was pointing the other way. I know for a fact now that they were asking him to move on. So I tapped one on the shoulder. I was very polite. And then I found out they were PSOs,
yeah, the plastic police, we call them, yeah.
Yeah, I said, what's the problem? But he's got to move on. He's causing a disturbance. No, he's not causing a disturbance. People like him. I stand here quite often and listen to him and put money in the shoebox and I'm unemployed. Why don't you walk around the shopping centre looking for shoplifters?
Yeah. Or young kids causing trouble.
Stabbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, sometime after that, I once a week I drive through Horsham Town Centre in the middle. It's called a Carfax. You go through it. There is always a police car parked quite near a disabled bay with nobody in the car. So it's there planted to make you think, that's what I believe, you've got a couple of coppers walking around the town making sure we're all safe. It's not. The 2 coppers get out, because I actually saw it at a later date, and get into another cop car and drive off, and that's left there all day just to look good. And sometime after that, I'm not saying it's the same car, but it's a cop car, I actually saw one policeman get into it, and he saw me looking at the rear of his vehicle, and he came up my arm.
He did what? Oh no, have we lost Paul? Paul, are you still there? I'm right. I was hooked. I want to know. I want to know what happened next. Paul in Horsham, we're going to try and get him back. That was really interesting. All right, let's, while we're trying to get Paul back, let's read another message. This is from Luke, who says, I live in North Solihull, not the posh side of Solihull. Not long ago, I heard an intruder get into my elderly neighbour's property at night. My elderly neighbour is visually impaired and hearing impaired. The intruder got through my neighbour's open window and took my neighbour's wallet containing money. I called 999 and the police came out straight away. The intruder fled, but after taking fingerprints, the police caught the suspect. The response by police was brilliant. Police went above and beyond, visiting my neighbour multiple times to reassure them. Fit safety alarms and investigate. That is amazing. That is really good. I'm really glad. This isn't about knocking the police. I think the police individually are decent people. I'm just questioning Shabana Mahmood. She's a politician. You know what I think about them. Paul, I was hooked and you dropped off. So you were driving past and you looked at the back of the car and the cop saw you doing...
No, I was actually, this particular time, I was looking at the back of the car.
Yeah.
And the policeman that got back out and said, is there a problem, sir? I said, well, I'm not sure, actually. Now, I don't think some of your viewers are like what I'm going to say now.
Don't swear, though.
I think they will, like. An awful lot will.
We'll have to dump it if you swear.
Colour of rainbow. No, I'm not swearing. Colour of rainbows on the rear of your car.
Ah, yeah.
And our metro buses have got it as well. Well, there's one. I know that for a fact because I know a bus driver. He said, "You got a problem with that, sir?" I said, "Well, I have actually, because every year I look at my council tax, and it gives me a breakdown of what I'm paying. And 12%, I think, was last year I paid you guys to have your cars painted with rainbow colours."
Yeah, I mean, that is ridiculous. Look, you know, I mean, what we want them to do is behave fairly to everybody from every demographic, right? Not virtue signal. They're police officers. They're supposed to be, they're supposed to be unbiased. They're supposed to support everybody. They don't need to put a flag on their cars at a cost to the taxpayer. It is absolutely ridiculous. I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to be apolitical as well. So, you know, they're not supposed to display anything like that. I mean, I just think that is ridiculous. But so but what you were saying though about the idea that they park a car to make it look as though they're around and then go away. It's the same as doing the cardboard cutout. Do you remember the cardboard cutout police?
I don't. No.
Maybe it was just London. Hilarious. You couldn't make that up.
But there's something else, if I'm allowed to say it. Mm-hmm. Tesco's evergreen Christmas trees.
Yeah.
And not Christmas trees. Well, I stopped in Tesco's Express tonight, and it's got Merry Christmas all over the place.
What, meaning what? I don't understand. Yeah, but
Tesco's have they don't want.
Oh, they've removed the Christmas from the trees, but it's all over the store.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know what they are, don't we? I mean, I don't know. But as long as they're still saying Christmas, that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, then. I don't buy them anyway. Paul is in Horsham. Thank you very much indeed, because I am a Grinch and I don't support Christmas. So yeah, it's really interesting to me, this whole policing thing, because I think Gary solidified it for me when I said, look, what about Police Scotland? Because that was reduced to one force over Scotland. I said it's just got worse because there isn't that connection. There's not that community policing. And that is what they need to keep, is if they are going to amalgamate these areas and push them together, they still need to have those community officers. They still need, so I don't see what they're going to save, really. Do you know what I mean? And I also don't believe that when we see a saving, that it is going to go back into the police either. I think it will be snaffled up by the Chancellor. Vicky's in Manchester. Hello, Vicky. Good morning.
Hi, Petrie. Good morning. How are you?
I'm extremely well. How are you?
I'm loving the background. Absolutely loving it.
Yeah, the snow and everything. Do you like the way I've decorated them?
Yes, I love it. I love it. But more importantly, yeah, what are the police like in my area? I don't see any, to be honest. And thankfully, that's a good thing. I don't want to see the police because obviously it usually means trouble. When I do see the police, they're often calm, controlled, lovely people. I am a little bit biased. I'm training as a social worker, as you probably know. I comment a lot on your talk show, but the problem I think we've got is that there's not enough funding. there's not enough funding.
But I just worry that we're being conned. That's what because we're always conned, right? Let's be honest, we're always conned. Oh, we're not going to raise taxes, but by freezing the threshold, they're raising taxes, right? So we're conned. We're used to this by now. And they don't talk to us like adults. Look, we know that money's got to be saved. We know that policing isn't in the condition that we would want it to be in. Crimes have changed. You know, things are changing rapidly, and our police hasn't kept up with that. But be honest with us, right? Don't say, oh, we're going to save all this money, it's going to be great, because there's always a cost to saving money. But my fear is that cost is people feeling even more isolated from the police. That's my worry. I think the police themselves are, you know, decent people, apart from some people in the Met, but we won't go there. But, you know, on the whole, they're there to do a good job and look after people. But if they're having to drive for 45 minutes or an hour to get to something, do you know what I mean? I just think we're going to lose out. That's what worries me.
Yeah, I mean, for such a small country, Petrie,
I know.
The UK, you know, it's just ridiculous. The figures that it just doesn't. It's not comprehensible, really, is it?
No. I just don't know why we make such a hash of everything.
I agree.
Well, you just make a mess of everything, don't we? Can't get anything right.
We seem to.
But so you don't really see them around you at all?
No, not particularly. We have the, I hate to say it, but the plastic police officers who do a fantastic job, you know, to say, hello, how you doing? And you tell them your concerns, but they've not got the power to do anything.
Yeah.
But then again, the proper police officers haven't got the power because they're too busy dealing with things that are more important. That even then, when they do, I mean, I must admit, you know, the Manchester Arena bombings, for instance, that support was unbelievable, wasn't it? Everyone was there. In a crisis, I feel that everyone reacts and, you know, they're there. But for general Betty down the road that's somebody's still...
And crime prevention and stuff like that. Yeah. It's just not there, is it?
People are just wandering around in the balaclavas, robbing people because they just know that nothing will ever get done.
Exactly. They just know that the odds are in favour of the criminals, always.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't really see the police. I just find it funny that I've got more powers of arrest as a civilian than the PCSOs have.
But would you, Petrie, like, do you remember when they were saying, oh, go into a shop and you've got the right of civil? I would not. How many people have got knives or even guns?
No, I mean, seriously, when they're saying, oh, you know, you should stop the shoplifters, I'm like, stuff off. I'm not stopping somebody nicking a turkey from Tesco that already is making billions in profit. Get lost. They can do it themselves.
Well, that also my main point was the country, from the country's point of view, if we went to, say, Dubai or, you know, another country, you wouldn't
get away with it.
No.
You wouldn't trust it, would you? Maybe we need to start some rumours. But yeah, people just think that they can get away with it. There aren't enough police. That's what causes it. And we can.
That's the be all and end all.
And then if you do get sent to jail, you only serve 30% of your sentence now. So
if you even go to jail.
if you even go to
yeah.
Oh, get me off this timeline, Vicky. I don't like it. It's all gone wrong. It's lovely to talk to you. You take care of yourself, all right? I'll speak to you soon. Right, I've got to take a quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. Right now you're with Petrie and this is Talkback. This is your chance to have your say. And we're talking about policing across the country because we have 43 forces. Every day's a school day, isn't it? We've got 43 forces across England and Wales. We used to have over 240 of them. It was then reduced to 117, then to 43, and now it looks like maybe reduced again to as few as 12. So I'm just wondering if we're going to lose out because of this. I can understand they need to save money. I can also understand that policing is just not working the way it is. But what really does need to be done? And is there a concern that we will lose that community connection? We'll see police officers even fewer times, even less, that the police just seem to get further and further away from the public that they are meant to be serving. And what worries me is that this will only exacerbate that further. That's my concern on this. Well, John has called from Staffordshire, and he'll know more about it than I do, which is not going to be difficult, but because you're an ex-police officer.
I am Petrie. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's lovely to talk to you, John. Thank you for calling in.
Hi. I've phoned before and I've spoke to you before on a couple of occasions. I've got some really good ideas if you hear me out.
Oh, yeah, I'm listening. Don't you worry.
Okay. I think the biggest thing we've got to do in this country is ring-fence money for policing.
Yep.
As in, if we're going to save money, it's going to go back into the police.
Completely agree.
And I think we need to get rid of crime commissioners.
They're getting rid of the PCCs, aren't they? The police and crime commissioners. They are going.
Absolutely. We need to go back to having a police authority where you've got elected councillors who oversee the police.
Yeah, that's what they're planning. What they've said is they're going to get rid of PCCs, the police and crime commissioners, costing 100 million a year. So
exactly.
They're on 100. They're on over 100 grand a year each. You know, it's ridiculous.
I know what they get.
Yeah,
I know what they get.
It's outrageous. So they're going. They're saying, of course, that this is a really bad idea, but I don't think so. So they're going. They're brought in by Theresa May. And it will be councils and a special board on a council that will oversee the police and set budgets and mayors as well. They're going to be given more power, like Sadiq Khan has in London.
Yeah, but not Sadiq Khan.
Not Sadiq Khan. No. Come on, take him off us.
No, I can't stand him. Also, I think a really good idea is you need, as the programme's been saying, you need local officers with contacts to, dare I say it, you used the word yourself earlier on, You need local community officers who deal with scropes and can deal with local problems.
Yeah, the local, because they know the local druggies, they know the local, people with mental health issues, they know, and that is what policing is about, John, and that's what worries me, is that we will see a reduction in that kind of police assistance. Exactly.
Plus, local community officers are the best source of information you can get. My best mate was a community officer. I only did it for a year, but he used to deal with prostitutes and come into contact with drug dealers, and the information you get as a police officer is second to none when you're dealing with people like that, if they have your trust as well.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I mean, it is so, it's kind of self-evident, isn't it, that should be the case. That people, but it just really does worry me that we're just going to see a reduction in that. I mean, they will say we're going to put community policing. What they will do, as you and I both know, is they'll use PCSOs. They will not have.
They'll try to.
Yeah,
they'll try to.
They will.
We need to get rid of the JFBs as well. Sorry, I'm using a.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
It's jobs for the boys.
Oh.
Basically. There's too many jobs for the boys in the police.
There is everywhere. But you're right.
We need to nationalise certain things where we could save massive amounts of money in the police. And I finished as a police constable. But I could see where we could have made massive savings just as a police constable. We don't need every single police force to have a different type of stab vest, a different kind of hat, a different kind of berry bag.
It's madness.
We should have a national police uniform, and we should cost it out to who's going to provide. And I'm not saying skimp, but we should get the best provider and do it cost effectively. We also need to centralise training as well.
Great.
And I'll give you a prime example, and it's when you were talking about it earlier, it just suddenly occurred to me. We have, like, every single force will have, I'll give you an example, method of entry training for breaking into doors. Each force will have a certain person who teaches that, and you'll have a certain person who teaches self-defense, and you'll have a certain person who teaches public order, like dealing with riots. Why don't we have, and you could do it with a quarter of the staff that they use across the forces, you could have instructors who travel around different forces.
Yeah, you could.
And teach these things. It's a basic, simple, cash-saving idea, to centralise training.
But why is it seems so obvious when you say it, that why isn't this just being done already? I mean, the idea that stab vests, I was quoted that earlier, that in some forces they pay, 15 quid. In others they're paying 55 quid. And it's like, how has that ever been allowed to happen? It's the same in the NHS. It's disgusting.
I'll give you an example. The Crown Commissioner I worked under, I've got to be careful what I say. Anybody could guess where I worked last time, but the Crown Commissioner, we had stab vests in a certain force. Everybody will know by looking if they're watching the television. We had stab vests which were inadequate, and I mean really inadequate.
Wow.
And the force I worked in beforehand, because I worked in I call them forces. Sorry, Petrie. I always will.
Yeah, I keep having to say, services as well, because it doesn't sound right, does it?
It's too politically correct for me.
I agree.
I joined a police force. I came from the armed forces, and I went into a police force. Basically, you can get like two different police forces next door to each other, and one will have inadequate equipment, and one will have top quality equipment. I'm talking, say, Cleveland and Northumbria. I'm talking Stafford and West Midlands. We need to centralise and economise on, but keep the same safety
Yeah, but I mean, because you can do that. It's called economy of scale, right? It's so simple. You go to a company and you say, I want 10 stab vests, and they're going to quote you the highest price possible. If you go to the same company and say, I want 10,000 stab vests, you're then in the driving seat as to what they will cost.
Yeah, and you can say, right, all right.
We're only prepared to pay you X amount. Do it.
Here's the biggest one, though. If you reduce the amount of forces, but keep your local community officers in the areas they work in, because they have the knowledge. If you reduce police forces, you'll reduce the amount of chief constables you have. You'll reduce the amount of deputy chief constables you have. And do you know how much money they are actually on?
No.
It's ridiculous. I'll give you a prime example. A certain officer, I'm not going to say it for legal reasons, but a certain officer who used to work in Staffordshire Police went to another police force as a chief constable, and he was sacked for wearing medals he shouldn't have worn.
Okay.
He, because he served in Staffordshire Police beforehand, retains a chief constable's pension because he was acting chief constable for over 6 months. And this is what they all do, Petrie. You'll get a chief constable who wants to go on a course when he's due retirement. He'll bring his deputy in. His deputy will deputise for 6 months, and if he does a day over 6 months, he gets a chief constable's pension for the rest of his life. And you were talking in excess of £160,000 a year because he's done a job for 6 months. So we need to clamp down on that.
That is shocking.
It's
shocking, isn't it? Like you said, I mean, everybody's just got their hands in the cookie jar, haven't they?
Absolutely. We used to call it top shelf or top corridor in the police. If once they get above, I'm going to be fair, I work with a lot of good superintendents and chief superintendents who were good people, and I mean really good people. They weren't bothered about themselves, they were bothered about the job. But once you get above superintendent or chief superintendent, you're on the top corridor.
You're on the gravy train.
Yeah, and you cease to be a police officer then. You become somebody who's running a company. And the police cannot be run as a company. It is inherently wrong that police services run the police service as a business. They are, by their very nature, there to uphold the law, and they are there by their very nature to consent to police by consent by the people of this country.
Exactly. They forget that.
The police service was formed on.
Yeah.
That's what the police service is there to uphold the law and do it by consent of the people. And that's what I joined up as, to be quite honest with you. I came out the forces and I thought I was going into a great, morally good job. But I didn't.
I can hear the frustration. Yeah. Once you start running something like the police, like you said, like a business, that's when it all falls apart, because
that's when it fell apart around about 2010, in my opinion. When we started getting people in who were business managers rather than police officers, because they get to a certain point where it becomes more beneficial for them to better the career.
Yeah, they become political, don't they? It's all about them then. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's such a shame.
I'm not going to say it. We had a certain person in Staffordshire who was a great police constable. Absolutely fantastic. In fact, I can say it because he was such a good man. We had a bloke called John Giffard, and he was an absolutely superb chief constable. All he was bothered about was policing Staffordshire, and he was fantastic at doing it. And then, I can't say it, but we got a bloke whose initials were GM, and he was the biggest catastrophe Staffordshire ever had as a police constable. He was a clown.
And it just does take just one person, doesn't it, to ruin it, to pull everything apart. But I think a lot of what you're saying that would improve policing is absolutely bang on. And that's what they need to do, John, is sit down with people like you who've actually worked the job and done the job and listen to what you say. I just don't understand why they don't do that. Don't just go to the political upper ranks. Take people who've left a career early, or take people who've really worked at it, like John, and ask them, because what he was saying was bang on. Right, quick break, back in a second.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning to you. This is Talk, and it is Petrie, and I'm here until 1 o'clock. And we got a message here from the lovely Tristan, who I spoke to yesterday, who says that as he's registered blind, could you please describe your Christmas tree? Thanks for being the most compassionate presenter on your station. Thank you. Yes, and I know we've got a lot of blind listeners, and even if they're not blind, they're listening on the radio. So I should describe that I am sat at a desk in between two large triangles of tree, and they are beautifully decorated. I wish I could say it was by my own fair hand. In fact, they're digital, and they have a Star of Bethlehem on the top of each of them, although you can't really see the top on the camera unless I stand up a bit. And they've got blue baubles and blue and white striped baubles, and those teardrop white, there you go, there's the star there, the people who are watching and who can see this, not like Tristan. Tristan, I hope you didn't get locked away anywhere today, by the way. I was thinking about you earlier. So it's very pretty, and it's got sort of white ribbons that go around the tree as opposed to up and down, and some little snowflakes on it as well. And yeah, so I'm sat in between those, and they're both the same. So they've both got the same sort of blue and white baubles. And if you look at the scale of the trees, they are about 140 stories high, according according to what's in the background. So yeah, so there you go, Tristan. I hope that is a pretty picture for you. So the Star of Bethlehem and those lovely white teardrop baubles, and then blue baubles, and then blue and white striped ones, and star-shaped ones. So they're very pretty. They're very nice. So there you go. I hope you can see that now, Tristan. Let's take a call, and Susan is in Cumbria. Hello, Susan. Good morning.
Hello. Actually, I've got a confession to make. I'm Patricia, Suzanne's daughter. Suzanne is mute.
Oh.
So, but she gets really agitated.
Oh, bless her.
At things that's happening. So I happen to be staying with her tonight.
And you're her voice?
Yes.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, Patricia, welcome. And Suzanne, I'm sorry that I wind you up and you feel like you want to speak. I'm sorry. You can always text message. I'll always read it out. But anyway, Patricia, what did Suzanne want to say?
Well, it was about the police, really. She's had a lot of relations within the police force, and she, tragically, Cumbria is, as you know, is a big area. It is a big county, and it has had many beautiful rural little stations with beautiful big houses and the magistrates' courts. They've all been sold off.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. I don't know where that money has gone, but yes, they've been sold off, and to see a policeman, they're as rare as hen's teeth.
Love that expression. Yeah, I agree, and that is a tragedy, isn't it, in rural areas? I mean, when I was growing up in one of the local villages, because I lived outside the village, but there was a police station in a police house, in Culworth. So you had the police officers living in their communities, which is what you're describing, and that makes such a difference to local knowledge. You know where to go if you're in trouble. It's such a shame what we've done.
It is, especially as the Cumbria is now expanding with the migrants.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of migrants, and
people are feeling less safe.
Oh yes, yeah, crime's up, and our plans afoot, so I've heard, to make Cumbria the new Greater Manchester. So that's another concern of my mother.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it is such a shame. I think a lot of us, we look back on the days where police, we were closer to the police, and that was important, because they do, as we were just talking about, they do have to police by consent. We give them our consent, and if they keep withdrawing from us, it's getting harder and harder to give that consent. Right? It's getting harder and harder to trust them.
Yeah. The policeman today, what one of my police relatives would have said, glass behinds. I won't say what they usually call a behind in Britain, but that's what they used to call them.
Really?
Yeah.
It is such a shame. Well, Patricia, you've been brilliant speaking for your daughter. So thank you.
My mother.
Oh, your mother. Your mother. Sorry.
Mother.
You said that's right. You said you were the daughter. Can your mother text? She can always send me a message.
She's tried texting in before, and she said, "Look, I'm mute. I can't call. If I'm not here."
Well, if she does that with me, I will definitely read out her messages.
Oh, that's lovely.
All right. I will make her. I will make her a priority. So because she's mute and she can't phone in, if she messages me and just reminds me who she is, I will definitely prioritise her, okay?
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
All right, Patricia, you take care. Lots of love. Give my love to your mum as well.
Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you very much indeed. Right, there's some more messages here just to finish off the hour. Loads and loads of messages tonight, actually. Thank you so much. I won't get to all of them. Stuart says, over the last 10 years in Scotland, over 150 police stations have closed. 0 local beat, 0 community officers in sight, crime on the rise, and 0 respect for the law. It's unbelievable and needs to be reversed very quickly, and that's from Stuart, like I said. And this is what I was saying was my concern, and I've now got proof that I was right, sadly, that was my concern. And this has happened in Scotland already, and it clearly hasn't worked as well as they said it has, and they're just going to now go, oh, well, it doesn't matter, we'll just repeat it in England and Wales now, even though it's a busted flush. It doesn't make any sense to me.